There is one companion who has adventured beside Drizzt Do'Urden longer than any other. She has been with him for almost all of his life, and like Drizzt, she carries those centuries of loyalty in her bones. Her name is Guenhwyvar. She is a 600-pound magical black panther. Drizzt first found her in Menzoberranzan in the possession of a wizard named Masoj Hanet, who used her to hunt, torture, and kill for him. In his words, she was his unthinking magical slave. Drizzt knew from the first moment he saw her that there was something more behind her intelligent eyes. He recognized in her a kindred soul. In the story of Homeland, Guenhwyvar eventually defies her magical bonds, saves Drizzt's life from a cave fisher, and together, she and Drizzt defeat Masoj, freeing her and bonding her to Drizzt. She would go on to fight beside him through a decade of wandering the Underdark, even pulling him back from the brink of madness in the throes of his alter ego, the Hunter. And throughout his trials and triumphs on the Sword Coast, she has been there. For more than 2 centuries, they have been together. The magic that contains Guenhwyvar's spirit is called a figurine of wondrous power, a carved statuette enchanted to hold a creature's essence within, bound forever to its master's beck and call. But Guenhwyvar's spirit runs deeper than this magic alone. She did not begin with Masoj or the Faceless One, or in the Underdark at all. Her story stretches back nearly 1,000 years, to an elven city called Cormanthor, and to an elf who refused to let her die without a name. This is the story of how Guenhwyvar came to be. The year is 253 DR. The city, Cormanthor, the greatest elven city in the world. It sits deep in the forest, its needle-pointed spires rising between the trees, its streets walked by elves who have lived there for centuries. Coronal Eltargrim rules it, and by the standards of his people, he is a radical. He has opened Cormanthor's gates to outsiders, humans, gnomes, halflings, dwarves. Races the elves have always kept at a distance are now walking the same streets, living within the same walls. Many of the noble elven families are furious. But Josediah Starum is not one of these. He is a blade singer, one of the most respected and demanding roles in elven society. Blade singers are the joining of sword and spell, warrior mages trained to protect their people through both martial and magical mastery. Josediah is among the best. He is 150 years old, golden-haired, quick with a blade, and quicker with a laugh. And he believes in what Eltargrim is trying to build. Even his own family, House Starum, stands in opposition to the Coronal's decree. Josediah hopes they will come around. Outside the city, deeper in the forest, lives a human named Anders Beltgarden. He is old, gray-bearded, and brilliant, a former ranger who gave up that life for the study of magic. He lives alone in a hidden tower, surrounded by illusions and magical wards designed to keep visitors away. Of all the elves in Cormanthor, only Josediah knows the path to his door. They have been friends for 4 decades. On a fine spring morning, Josediah makes his way out to visit him. He enters the tower and hears a growl. It comes from behind the door of Anders' alchemy shop. Josediah draws his swords and pushes through the magically warded door, taking a full blast of electricity for his trouble. He crashes to the floor. His friend, the wizard Anders, barely looks up from his work. When Josediah finally gets to his feet, he pulls the blanket from a large, covered cage in the corner. Inside is a black panther, female, 3 times the size of any cat he has ever seen. She paces the cage with slow, deliberate movements, her muscles rolling beneath her coat. Then she stops and looks directly at Josediah. He is so struck by the intelligence in her eyes that he cannot speak. Anders explains what he intends to do with her. A figurine of wondrous power, a magical statuette crafted from the essence of a living creature. The process is long, expensive, and precise. It requires specially prepared scrolls, powders, oils, and metal filings, fine enough to be mixed into the animal's food. Anders has already spent 6 months in preparation and 3 more weeks working on the cat herself. A dwarf craftsman has been commissioned to carve a panther statuette from onyx. When the figurine is ready, the cat must be killed. Her life force is drawn into the statuette. From that point on, she can be summoned by her master and dismissed again at will. Anders calls it a gift of immortality. Josiah argues that it's slavery. Anders was a ranger once, but he has devoted himself to magic now, and its pursuits have requirements. Josiah cannot accept this. He looks at this panther and sees something beyond just an animal. He sees a creature of dignity and will. He tells Anders that to bind her to a statuette, to reduce her to a tool that sits and waits for a master's call, is an act of domination over something that deserves better. Anders offers to give him the figurine when the work is complete, but Josiah refuses. He says he would never be able to look at her without feeling what had been taken from her. Over the next few weeks, as Anders continues preparing, Josiah returns to the tower again and again. He sits in front of the cage looking at this creature. The panther paces and watches him, and sometimes sits. During these visits, something unspoken passes between them, a connection. On the night Anders plans to complete the ritual, Josiah cannot stay in the city. He walks out past the gates of Cormanthor, ignoring posted warnings about goblins and worse in the forest. He climbs a familiar hillock north of the city and stands under the stars. He thinks about the panther. During his contemplations, orcs pour out of the tree line at the base of the hill, dozens of them screaming and charging. Josiah releases a fireball that scorches the hillside and drops the first wave. He draws his swords and fights, cutting through orc after orc with the grace of a trained blade singer. When 3 giants step out of the dark, he has no spells left to fight them. His swords are the only option. He fights brilliantly, ducking and weaving, but he sees his end before him. And then something black streaks over his head. The panther lands on a giant's chest, claws and jaws going to work. The giant goes down under her weight. Josiah doesn't have time to ask how or why. He is still pressed by the remaining 2 giants. Anders arrives not long after, armed with what spells he could gather in haste. Between the old mage's magic, Josiah's swords, and the panther's ferocity, the giants fall. But the panther has been badly hurt. When the battle is over, she lies on the hillside with her backbone shattered, breathing in short, forced gasps. Anders and Josiah look at each other over her body. It seems the old mage had changed his mind and freed her from the cage, and she had run straight to Josiah's aid. Anders carries her back to the tower in a portable hole, a square of black velvet that folds into an extra-dimensional space. He eases her out of it carefully. She is dying. He tells Josiah to leave. He has to complete the ritual now, quickly, or she will die without it. Binding to the figurine is the only thing that can save her. But Josiah refuses to go. He wants to stay with her. So Anders prepares the enchanted oil and pours it over her head. He places the carved onyx statuette beside her. He takes his dagger and begins to speak the name he has always called her, Whiskers. Josiah stops him. He grabs the man's hand and pulls the dagger away. He looks into the panther's eyes, still bright, looking back at him with the same intensity they have held since the first day he pulled the blanket from her cage. He will not let this cat die with the name Whiskers. He searches for a name, but it finds him. He understands suddenly that it has always been hers. Guenhwyvar, he says aloud. A black flash fills the room like a lightning bolt in reverse. Gray mist rolls through the air. The panther dissolves into nothing, and then the mist is gone too. All that remains is the figurine. Anders and Josiah sit side by side on the floor and try to understand what just happened. The figurine was not completed. Without the sacrifice, the ritual was never actually finished. Josiah picks up the statuette and speaks her name, Guenhwyvar. The gray mist returns, swirling in the air beside him, and takes shape. Guenhwyvar stands in the room, breathing easily, her wounds already healing. She looks up at Josiah. She is not a slave, she is not a tool, she is the same panther, fully herself, looking back at him with the same intelligence and intention she has always carried. The statuette did not diminish her. It gave her a door, a way between planes. Anders reaches out his hand for the figurine, but Josiah pulls it away. He will pay whatever Anders asks for. He already knows that Guenhwyvar will be his most loyal companion for the rest of his days. He just doesn't yet know that she will go on to outlive him by nearly 1,000 years, passing through hands worthy and unworthy alike, until she comes to rest in the pocket of a young drow warrior in the tunnels outside Menzoberranzan. Guenhwyvar's origins come from a short story simply titled Guenhwyvar, written by Salvatore and originally published in a TSR anthology called Realms of Magic back in 1995. If you want to listen to this story yourself, it's part of the Collected Stories, A Legend of Drizzt on Audible, which is a fantastic collection narrated by a group of celebrity readers. This particular story is narrated by Tom Felton, who played Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter movies. Salvatore mentioned he pulled the name Guenhwyvar from Mary Stuart's Arthurian series. It's a play on the Celtic or Gaelic Guenhwyvar, and Stuart claimed it meant shadow. For a majestic panther who lives between planes and steps out of the dark when her companion needs her, it's hard to imagine her as a Whiskers. There's also a confusing and very frustrating pronoun situation from many of the early books. Guenhwyvar was always a she. TSR told Salvatore not to assign gender to magical items when he was writing The Crystal Shard. He disagreed, but he was overruled. Then a copy editor went in and changed out some of his scenes by replacing his neutral language with male pronouns. He then spent years correcting it in interviews and letters. Gwen was always female. On a personal note, I love that Guenhwyvar is such a fundamental piece of the Legend of Drizzt. I think animals are one of the greatest things we get to experience in life. They don't have egos or agendas, but they can give love that's unfiltered and can be quite healing. I also think a big part of why readers become endeared to Drizzt is his love and respect for Guenhwyvar. Gwen has saved Drizzt's life and those of his companions so many times. She is his conscience when he's lost and his solace when he feels alone. She is the oldest of the companions by nearly 1,000 years, and I can't imagine the series without her. I hope you've enjoyed this. Let me know your favorite Guenhwyvar story in the comments. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next week for more lore from the Forgotten Realms and the Legend of Drizzt.